Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this lovely Monday morning with David. And as always, we are here to share with you the most practical, the most powerful wisdom and tools from the teachings of Kabbalah on how to navigate through the next 7 days of your life. But of course, those lessons, those ideas are going to serve you for your entire life. I guess that's a bit of a big statement to make. Today, we are talking about releasing the past. And the reason for that is this month, this entire month of Virgo is supporting us to evaluate. It's the tax season for the soul, to evaluate our our profit and loss on an energetic level. And that often comes, if we're not aware of it, it can be painful because the nature of the month is, or every day in this month is to show us glimpses of things we could have done, moments in our year where we could have done things differently and we didn't. And we're not even aware that those opportunities, those daily events are actually opportunities to transform any missteps that we had in the past year.
Right.
And we recently got an email from a listener, and I thought it's a great way to launch this discussion, which will continue next week, of course, as well, to a different angle. But I want to read aloud, if it's okay with everybody, part of the email that we received a couple weeks ago from one of our listeners. She says, I recently listened to one weekly energy boost on challenges, and I'm trying to make sense of some different kinds of challenges that I've experienced. My understanding is that according to Kabbalah, everything is a test and everything happens for a reason. My challenges have been ones that I have not heard addressed. The loss of a child, the loss of an eye, the loss of 2 breasts after 3 cancer diagnoses. Am I going to keep getting these challenges until I pass some test? Yes, I understand the grieving process and do grieve those losses. However, I'm trying to understand from a Kabbalistic perspective why I'm receiving these challenges. So it's a specific question, but I think it's a question that we all have in a general way, is I have situations that happened to me in the past, ranging from mildly uncomfortable to ridiculously unfathomable.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own gauge, right? Some people have gone through terrible things that other people breeze through, and we relate that to each soul's unique process. But how does one change how the past affects them, right? Part of what our reader is asking is, how is she supposed to understand why these difficult things are happening to her? What is she supposed to, how can she get to, what is she supposed to learn, do, use them for? But I think for all of us, no matter what we've gone through, and her examples are pretty intense ones, our challenges are there, and they leave marks.
Yep.
They leave memories, they leave emotional scars, sometimes they even leave physical scars. Why? What can we do to understand them, experience what they're there for, and let them go?
Did she share her name?
She did, but I didn't ask her if we could say
Okay,
it.
that's fine.
You can call her Mary.
Okay.
No, maybe let's not call her Mary. Let's call her Susan.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm looking for a generic name.
Okay. So I think these are painful. They're as painful as they get, right? I mean, and I'm very hard pressed about talking about stuff that I haven't personally gone through, right? So I think there's what you personally gone through, which you have the energetic permission to talk about. I think then there's what you've experienced, what other people go through that you intimately know. I think that's the next level of kind of energetic
personal
permission.
Experience, bystander experience, and
then
something you read about.
Then there's another layer of it. So I always preface that with I don't like to talk about things that I personally haven't gone through, but what I will say, if I have to address it from the point of view of what the wisdom talks about, I probably get this. I always get this in like that Kabbalah 1, class 3 or 4, when I'm not ready to talk about it yet, because we start to talk about those more difficult questions, right. About death and loss, especially probably closer to Kabbalah 3 even, because because it has to do with reincarnation and it has to do with a lot of other topics that require proper attention and deserve a substantial amount of time to understand how the process of the soul works. However, what I will say is, and I'm going to refer, I mentioned this on my Instagram the other day, that I met a guy. I hear stories like this all the time, but this actually is how I'm going to answer the question. So I met this guy. He's the founder of one of the biggest natural food companies in the world. I mean, I can say it. The company's name is Orgain, and you can actually go see the video that the founder did. His name is Andrew Abraham, and he did a video on his process. But when I spoke to him, we met for a couple hours, and I said, tell me about how you became so successful. He's a very young guy, and he essentially went through bad cancer when he was a teenager, and as a result, he became malnourished, and he was getting so thin that that was threatening to kill him more than the cancer was. So then he started to eat these shakes that the hospitals give you, and obviously it was toxic ingredients, and so he started to make the shakes at home, and then he went to medical school, and he decided at the end of his residency to create this product for the world, an organic plant-based shake that the world would need, hence Orgain. So anyways, he became one of the biggest companies in the world. Now, how did that come about? Obviously, he credits it 100% to
his illness.
To his illness, right? And so what I've noticed is the knowing why I'm going through something is knowledge and wisdom, right? It's wisdom. It's wisdom like a person.
It's information.
Yeah, information. It's energy. It's energy from the creator. To know something is energy, the same way meeting my soulmate is energy, the same way accumulating abundance is energy. We know that those things we need to earn, right? We know that the soulmate doesn't just plop into our lap. We know that business doesn't just come bursting through the door. We know that's a process and that takes time, and I need to earn that both physically and spiritually. We've all accepted that. When it comes to knowing why I'm going through a painful situation, something about us demands to know right away. Demands to know that information, demands to see my entire past life.
To connect the dots.
I want to connect the dots, and rightfully so, right? Because it's painful, and pain goes away when I understand why I'm going through it. This is...
I might argue with
well,
you.
Well, actually, this is the truth. Pain goes away. I mean, I'm going to stand by that statement. Pain goes away when I understand why. As soon as you understand the why and you see the whole picture, fine, 95% of the pain goes away, right? Now, what I would say to anyone who's been through a horrible traumatic situation, I would say, if you use the tools of Kabbalah not to understand why you're going through it, because that's something that you earn down the line, but instead, how do I take this horrible situation, what seems like a horrible situation, this painful, the situation that's putting me at a disadvantage to the world, right? Because a person who's lost an eye, a limb, a child, all of a sudden you're at a disadvantage. All of a sudden you're being slowed down. All of a sudden there's a lot of physical, painful ramifications of that, financial, emotional, and all that does is while the whole world is thriving and moving forward, you've become slowed down. So despite all that, if you find a way every single day to have powerful consciousness, to have certainty beyond logic, to plant amazing seeds, to do work on yourself so that you don't jump over the healing process too quick. You don't speed up the healing process too much. You really mourn. You go through the process. You feel the pain. All the things that both Kabbalah gives tools for, as well as conventional therapy and what modern science gives us tools for. And you combine the two, and you move forward with less and less victim consciousness, more and more certainty every day. What will happen is not only will your physical life become a fulfilling one at some point, but that the Creator will then reveal to you with utter clarity the why you've gone through that process. You will earn all this wisdom and knowledge. And my experience has been, the more traumatic the situation, it means that it translates into a great amount of souls that you will help, because how are you going to help someone with a problem that you haven't gone through? So that is the way I would answer that email.
I want to take a moment and invite everybody to think about the people that you know who have gone through things, who have a difficult past, that might benefit from hearing what we're talking about today, and share. You can share the show with them, whether on Facebook. If they don't have Facebook, we're on YouTube, Instagram, all the podcast apps. This is something that, I imagine that with all of the crazy that's happening in our world today, a lot of the crazy is fueled by people having difficult pasts and needing to do something in the present to fill the hole that past has created, right? Mm-hmm. Not in a negative, right? We all are human beings. We all want to feel good, right? That's the nature of the human being, is to run towards pleasure and run away from pain. And in modern society, we've become very good at running away from the pain. Mm-hmm. A lot of people look at their past and they say, well, I can't change what happened, right? I can't change my mistakes. I can't. I wish I didn't say what I said. I wish I wasn't. There's some relationships I wish I never had, or I never met those people. And I think one of the things we need to talk about today is also, right? While we can't change, or we aren't in control of what happens to us. We are in control of how what happens to us affects us. And that is how the Kabbalists explain releasing the past, right? By me transforming how something affects me, I actually transform the series of events that took place. And I'm going to use a really, I think it's funny, not funny, but funny. There's this concept out there called gaslighting, right? When it's kind of psychological abuse where something happens and then maybe the perpetrator will say, well, that's not what happened, right? It's like you saying, well, it's too hot in here. And I'm telling you, no, it's not.
That's gaslighting.
But it is. That's gaslighting. But it is too hot in here, but I'm telling you it's not, right? So what that does is that makes the person then question their experience, the validity of their experience. They stop trusting their thoughts and their feelings and things like that.
Got it.
This technique is actually what the Kabbalists use on the force called the opponent, right? The opponent gets me to think I'm the victim. I am the weak one. I can't think of another word other than victim. I'm helpless. I'm hopeless. I'm a lost cause. I'm damaged goods. There's this constant broadcast from that voice inside. Each one of us has that voice inside of us that is there not to win, but to challenge us to overcome it. Yeah. So when I hear that voice that says, you're worthless, I need to counter it with, no, I'm not. But the tendency is to believe, if you heard that soundtrack for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, how could you not believe it?
Right.
So the Kabbalists teach that the way to detach from that, the false reality that our opponent implants in our minds, is to gaslight it. No, I'm not. Right? Like that the constant meaning, and I want to use this on, let's say, a past experience, right? Maybe I'm sure almost all of us have been through a bad relationship, or a good relationship that ended badly, right? Whether it's a friendship, romantic relationship with a family member, doesn't matter. Gaslighting on that is basically retelling the story but the light version of the story. And I actually found scientific proof on this. I think I mentioned it last year. I was reading this book. It's called The Whole Brain Child.
Okay.
And it's a book for parents, I guess, and educators to help kids access their more executive function when they're getting upset, angry, reactive. So what they explain there, and I'm sorry that I don't remember the names of the author. I'm glad I remember the names of the book. The authors explain there that if something happens, let's say you fall, you're riding your bike and you skin your knee. Yep. And the tendency many times of some children is to never want to ride their bike again because they got hurt. Right. So I love that example because it could be any scenario in which we got hurt. I'm never going to ride a bike again because riding a bike is synonymous with pain.
Yep.
Okay. Being in an intimate relationship, synonymous with pain. Being in charge of a team of coworkers, synonymous with pain. Whatever, right? You can fill in the blank for yourself. So what they explain in that book is that every time you revisit the falling on the bike, it gets worse. every time you revisit the memory, you never experience it as it is again. For the actual 100% true scene never replays in your memory again. And that's one of the reasons in the book they tell you that when something difficult happens to your child, to constantly retell the story as it happened and not let their monsters take over and make it worse.
Not even to say it in a way that is more positive.
Well, I'm saying they're saying, you know, what happened? You know, you lost control of the bike for a sec, or you hit a bump, you fell over, you got a boo-boo, and the boo-boo healed.
Okay, not even to make it sound even better than that.
In the book, they say just retell it as it is, because they will then learn that is, you know, it doesn't get worse. It doesn't get darker.
So if you don't control the narrative, the opponent does.
That's the point. It's
all about who controls the narrative.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
So, and that's even in the brain then. I'm thinking about and hopefully all of you are thinking about different scenarios that happened in your past, and they get more and more emotionally charged as time goes on. He was out to get me from the beginning. No, he just forgot to call you back that one time.
Right.
He meant to hurt me. You know, we start to tell ourselves these stories, and again, that's the opponent in us telling us that story. But part of our work is, that's why I like the idea, gaslight the opponent. Wait a second, that is not how it happened. And the truth, the Kabbalistic truth that David was talking about before, there is this whole, you know, production company, Universal Studios, production company working behind the scenes to make sure that I get the experience that I need for my soul to transcend and heal its negative experiences, not that I will be owned and overtaken by them.
When Elisheva brought up the term gaslighting, I just wanted to look it up. And I want to read the exact, basically you explained it. I want to read the exact definition.
Merriam-Webster's dictionary
definition.
Yes.
So this is good. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or a group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual or group, making them question their own memory. This is what I love, because this is what the opponent does to us. Making them question their own memory, which is what you just brought up, perception or judgment, often evoking in them cognitive dissonance, which we had a whole show about, and other changes, including low self-esteem. So essentially, the opponent controls a narrative of whatever has happened to us in the past, tells it to us in a way that it didn't really happen,
right,
to get us, to disempower us, to remove from us any proactive consciousness, all the stuff that we're learning on the show, that we're trying to hijack the narrative of what people are going through, right, and to instill the positive way of looking at it, the way the soul actually wants to look at it. Here comes the opponent. The opponent wants you to manipulate the way you look at stuff in the past. And the ultimate goal is low self-esteem, which I love. I love that the ultimate goal of the opponent is to get you to a place where you feel you don't have value or power. And you could be someone powerful. So you could be someone wealthy. You could be someone who controls armies. But that doesn't mean internally you feel powerful and in control. In fact, when people start
Imposter syndrome.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, when people actually, and studies have shown this, and I had a student tell me this, he said that when he finally made enough money and he bought his second home and even a third home, he bought a third home and a vacation home or whatever, he said as soon as he had a second mortgage and then a third mortgage, he felt gradually less and less control in his life. All of a sudden, he felt more out of control. He felt more insecure by having these additional mortgages, which actually makes sense. Which means that externally he was more powerful, and as he became more powerful externally, internally he started to have
But that's
less
you
esteem.
just outed every bully on the planet, right? What is I try to impress this upon my younger children as well. The only reason anybody is going to try to make you feel bad is because they feel bad about themselves. So one of the things I also call them to do is when they are making someone else feel bad, what's going on there, right? What happened today that you feel you're gonna that you're gonna feel better by making someone else feel worse.
Hurt people hurt people. We talked about that many times. When I'm hurt, I'm going to hurt somebody else because then there's like this misery loves company. Then we're on the same level. Then I don't have to feel so bad. Because when the whole world's racing ahead and fulfilling their dreams and ambitions, and you're here with your little low self-esteem, that feels horrible. So it's actually easier to slow down 7 billion people than to speed myself up, right? You got that visualization of you trying to hold back 7 billion people as opposed to racing to catch up with them. But here's the thing what the opponent says. The opponent tells you that 7 billion people are racing ahead and you're being left behind. Even though none of this, it's all lies and none of it's true. They're actually, according to Kabbalah, other people don't even exist. There's no race. There's no race even. You don't exist. This whole game doesn't exist. And every time...
Sandcastles, right? That was Batya's
That's
imagery.
Right.
It's all sandcastles.
And every time you feel bad about something, just know that whatever this race is that you feel you're falling behind in, or whatever it is that you feel like you don't have that other people have, all of it's an illusion. There is no race. There is no game. There's only one objective, which is that the creator wants to give you, in fact, already did give you. It's there. It's just not revealed. You have a blindfold on. You just got to remove the blindfold, and it's there. And the thing that the teachers have been studying every week right now for Rosh Hashanah, and basically what's happening is the day of judgment for all the souls. That's the whole idea of what happens on the 1st of Libra.
We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So it's a lot of preparation. This is the month to learn and to commit to change. Not even commit to change, to just be the change, like to just immediately be the change. So one of the things that we're learning about, so powerful, is that because the opponent's job is to make you feel like you don't have, your only job is to remind yourself and to believe and to know, to solidify inside your heart that you have. Everything. So you have everything. And that's what pause, what a pleasure is, that as soon as something happens that it feels like you don't have, or you got taken away, you got hurt, immediately you have to say, no, well, I have everything. I actually have it. I am the most powerful. I have everything. So at the moment that something in this physical world happens that gives you the appearance of lack, you have to immediately inject the new narrative, which is, I'm whole. In fact, I don't need to do anything. Because the opponent says, oh, you don't have. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to control this person. You got to manipulate. You got to say something. You got to write something. You got to work harder.
Maybe you have everything now, but you're going to lose if you don't.
If you don't do this, Right.
The
opponent's always trying to get you to move. And it says that the light of the creator doesn't move. It stays the same. This sounds like a contradiction. We tell people you got to change, you got to change. We actually don't need to change. We actually need to realize that we're perfect. That's the only change we need to make, is to tap into this consciousness that when a challenge occurs, you have to say, no, I'm perfect. This is dangerous because people can now misuse this. The opponent can hijack this narrative and says, oh, you're perfect. Don't do anything. Don't share. Don't work. Don't do anything. No. So you have to be careful. This is more of an advanced topic that requires kind of like several lessons tied into one. I'm talking only from the point of view of when a challenge occurs, that a lack is emerging inside of you. It's to realize I'm perfect. And that's how you actually heal the past. The healing of the past is to recall the past.
Right.
Like you said, right? Bring up the past, bring up the story. And actually to say I'm perfect. I remember times in my own childhood when I was hurt. I was thinking about it, like in my high school years. Actually, I have painful memories of certain things that happened now that I think about it. And I'm visualizing myself going back to that moment and saying, I'm perfect. This is not even a problem. Because you're looking for everyone's approval in high school. You're looking for everyone to like you. I remember that now. So it's kind of like to go into that moment and say, I'm perfect. That's kind of a tool I would give about releasing the past.
There's a metaphor I anchor to during this time especially that I think might be helpful to share with everyone, in the respect that, you were saying before, it's all an illusion, right? None of this is real, so to speak. Well, people say, well, it feels very real.
I got a seething email about that. When I said everything's an illusion, my Kabbalah 1, someone wrote to me and said, you say that no one's dying. It's so insensitive. again, it's two different ways of looking at it. So keep going.
So the metaphor, it might even be something I heard from you like 500 years ago, but the soul, we talk many times on this show, we talk in Kabbalah 1 that our life is like a movie, right? And the plot is driven by my tikkun, the things that my soul is here to correct and to share. And all the people in my movie are like actors hired to elicit scenarios so that I get to my greatest good, that I transform, that I elevate. Even my soul chooses what family to be born into, the financial situation, the religion, the economy, like all that stuff. But what is the projector of my movie? That's my soul. My soul, and I love that, because then you really see that if the reality is projected by who I am inside, then the only way to change that movie is to change me on the inside. That's not an admission that I'm bad or damaged. We're not talking about change in that sense, but I may have certain belief systems that when I heal them, my movie will project in a completely different way. So, for example, you may have a situation, a scenario in the past, and you say to yourself, I can't believe I let that happen. I can't believe I was so stupid. I can't believe I was so naive. I can't believe, sometimes I have some scenarios in my life, and I want to look at my parents and say, how did you even let me, what were you thinking? You let me walk headfirst into a brick wall over there. But maybe I can't change that it happened, but I can look at that and say, you know what? I made the best decision I could with the information I had at that time, at the level that I was at. And if it happened to me again right now, I wouldn't do it. But that's who I was then. And I got really the key to healing those moments. And, we call the show Releasing the Past. We're really talking about healing the past. I have to love who I was then, and by loving and accepting the decisions I made then, with the information that I had, with the spiritual evolution stage I was at then, with the emotional evolution I was at then, I literally release my any negative attachment, dependency, or scars that experience may have left on me. Maybe I'm looking at I don't know, scenario where somebody did something to me, and I'm thinking to myself, how dare they? Who do they think they are, right? You have that's the narrative that the opponent is giving me. Maybe instead I can look at it and I can say, well, okay, they were obviously wounded and operating from that hurt place then, and I happen to be at the right place at the right time, both for their targeting and for my soul's evolution. I need to practice compassion and acceptance, because it happened already. And it doesn't have to define who I am right now. Really, releasing the past means accepting, loving, embracing the scenes in my movie. And by changing how I accept or receive those past experiences, the entire projection of my present movie can change.
No one is going to heal you. No one's going to do anything for you. We have to kind of make this clear. No one is going to come in and make you feel the way you want to feel. And when we say you got to make a change, you got to heal, this past stuff comes up, you got to be different, what we're really saying is the only thing you have to change is the belief system you don't have something, which is the narrative of the opponent. Opponent is constantly telling you and confusing you, you don't have something. You don't have it. You don't have what it takes to keep it. You don't have the certainty. You don't have the spirituality. You don't. So he starts to just chip away at our essence, that is whole. And the tool here that neutralizes the opponent, and is the essence of all the spirituality we've been learning all year. If you want to know what is the ultimate consciousness to enter the year with, it's that at the moment where I feel I need something from somebody else, just to realize, well, I have it. Once you know you have it and you feel you have it, then you can enter into this world. But it's very different when you kind of enter into the world when you have something and you're not needy of it anymore. Now you can share it, you can receive it. It's all a game, right? Actually, the Kabbalists say you need to get to a place where life isn't life or death for you anymore, but it's a game. And actually, the founder of the Kabbalah Center, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, talks about this exact point. He says that for the Creator, the reason why he created the world wasn't that he needed to create the world, but he said that for the Creator it was like a game. And essentially, it was like, he didn't need it, but he's like, okay, let's create it's like, there wasn't a need. It was kind of like a cause and effect that just took place. So for us, the sin of Adam, and we talked about this a couple shows ago, the sin of Adam wasn't that so many different stories about what happened. The sin of Adam wasn't that he ate from the tree or had intercourse, different ways of looking at it. The sin of Adam was one thing that once he made a mistake, the second mistake he made was he tried to fix the first mistake. He quickly reacted and he quickly felt like he didn't have something. He was reacting to his need to become spiritual. And we all have this. I'm not spiritual. I need to be spiritual. Whoever's listening to this show has a desire to be spiritual, and there's a guilt or a fear of not being spiritual. Even this guilt and fear is the gaslighting of the opponent. The opponent says, you got to be more spiritual. You got to be more with the light. So you see, you're listening to the show, how far you're so far from the light. And so as soon as you feel these things, you say, I am the light. I'm with the light. What are you talking about? And then once you know you're with the light, then go and work on yourself. Then go become a more sharing person. Then go, find ways to talk better to the people you love and to use the right words and to feel them more and not to feel yourself and so on and so forth. So this is kind of the commentary I had on what Elisheva said.
If you don't like the word gaslighting, I know it has a lot of negative charge to it. You can think of it as reconditioning your past, right? Reconditioning your experience. It may have been difficult and there may have been trauma. And by the way, that may require therapy and that may require, utilizing different modalities to achieve that complete healing. But you get to decide how it affects you. And I want to share an example, another way of, maybe it's a little bit deep for the show, but an idea that I actually take comfort in it at this point. Maybe as a Kabbalah teacher, I can do that. It might not be so comforting, but it's certainly helpful wisdom and understanding. The universe is set up, that movie that is projected by our soul is set up to give us opportunity after opportunity to come to our transformation. So for example, if it's to have more self-worth or to set better boundaries, we're going to have repetitive scenarios where we're taken advantage of, we're walked all over, or we have the potential to be walked over, not so that we will be taken advantage of, but so that we will be able to say, no, I'm not okay with this, I'm uncomfortable with this, etc. What ends up happening, or maybe I'll use a different example. Let's say you're you hate your job. How's that for a relatable example? I'm sure a lot of people out there, you are staying in your job because it provides you with security, the benefits are good, you don't have another option right now, look at the economy, blah, blah, blah. So you stay there, even though in your mind and your heart and your soul, you're saying, I got to get out of here. This is not for me. This is torture. I hate every minute. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. So the universe picks up on that desire. And if you don't take charge to get out of here, the universe will help you get out of here. It's called the curtain, right? If you have a number of opportunities to do, or I remember the Rav used the example of a person who has a drinking problem. And, every time they reach for the bottle, it's an opportunity to stop drinking. If they don't, at some point, some adverse situation will take place to help them stop. The Rav uses the example of cirrhosis in this case. I would use something a little bit more mild. Maybe a relationship would come to an end as a wake-up call to help the person to understand, right, what we call it hitting rock bottom, right? So the universe is rigged. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because you may have scenarios where the curtain fell in your life and you are scarred or marred, or you are holding on to that scenario as something traumatic or devastating, or that you can't even bounce back from it, when it was really the universe. And I'm talking about reconditioning your experience. Look back on that and understand for a second. when you were fired from that job, it was because you didn't want to be there in the first place, and the universe was helping you get out of it because you weren't willing to help yourself. When the relationship ended, it was because you knew it was toxic and you knew it was unhealthy, but you didn't have the strength to do it yourself. So someone came along and helped it happen faster. I actually have a student that kept on saying she needs to divorce her ex and she was going to wait until the kids get older. And then there was an affair that took place that made it a lot easier to speed things up. So you can look at that affair and rejection and betrayal and all the drama as punishment, or as the universe simply said, you're not moving along fast enough. Here's something to help you speed up the process. So the idea of, the reason I like those examples, not that I like them, of course, they were very painful and difficult for whoever went through them, but they're perfect illustrations of how you can take something that happened and change the narrative. How does it affect you? What really happened there? Who was behind the scenes? Who was the director and the producer and the screenwriter?
That's beautiful. I was as you were talking, I was thinking about when we when we hurt people. So when we talk about us getting hurt, when we hurt people, it really boils down to one thing. It boils down to not. And if we can achieve this, then the universe will do it to us, which will be a very positive thing, because I think it's what we're all looking for. It's that we don't understand how the person in front of us wants to receive. This is a huge topic because we are all so blind and limited when it comes to this one thing, which is how does this person want to receive, or what is going to bring them happiness? What's going to bring them empowerment? We throw things at people. We throw concepts at people. We throw energy at people, and especially our loved ones. Maybe because we think that's the way to do it. Maybe because that's how we like to get inspired. But that's not necessarily how they will. That's what will inspire them. I spoke to many people, and sometimes they ask me, well, how do I talk to my child? Or how do I talk to this person? They're not listening to me. I said, well, they're not listening because you haven't found the code. Like, you haven't tapped into the frequency by which they like to listen. Just kind of dial into that. They're a customer. You got to make the flavor. You got to make the flavor, tasty to their palate. So, why do I share that? I share that because part of our spiritual journey truly is to, and again, not from approval, not from need for approval, not because you're trying to find a way to get people to like you. You got to realize you're whole. You don't need anybody. But part of your spiritual work to become like the creator is to become a sharing force. And a sharing force understands the receiving force. Sharing force doesn't just fling energy out there, which I know a lot of people do. Sharing force truly tries to gather the what the audience wants and needs, and asks them and tries to feel them. And just that wanting, we haven't given tools really how to do that, but just wanting to know what the other person needs. So let's start with the people who we love and who love us and maybe we live with. Try to think, what does this person really want? Maybe even ask them, maybe go deeper, learn about their situation, learn about their past. And then you'll have a better understanding of how to give and to empower the person.
Can we talk about humiliation for a second?
Well, why not? Sure. Good segue.
Well, no, I think that part of, we're running out of time, and I know that there are listeners who are out there that had a situation in their lives where something happened and they felt maybe humiliated in the moment, but what they're left with is shame, or that somebody said something or did something that made them look bad.
Right.
Or put them down in front of other people. And that may have resulted in a loss of relationship, a loss of a job, a loss of, a social standing. How do we let go? How do we heal and release those moments?
The humiliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a direct correlation with people who get humiliated, who accept it with love. Don't look at where it's coming from. Kind of accept it with love. Let it burn. Let it break. The breaking is important. And when you let it burn and let it break, and you still have internal acceptance about it, a a huge revelation of pleasure or fulfillment immediately follows. But you have to do those things exactly. You got to let it burn. You got to break. You got to accept. Kind of like when you go to the gym. It burns. Then the muscle breaks. And then you go to the spa. So that's kind of the acceptance part, the spa part. So those three things, then you get a bigger muscle. You get beautiful. You become beautiful, right? The whole world loves like the statue of David. And then the whole world resents the opposite of that for some reason. It's just internal. We like strength because strength or the muscle being toned. What do people prefer? Tone the muscle. Now, you don't see advertisements of how to untone your muscle, like how to become jello-y, how to achieve flabbiness. You don't have to achieve flabbiness. It is the default of all of us. We are default flabby. And gravity is wearing away at us. So you have to burn, break, accept. Humiliation is the fastest way. I
think it's looking bad in general, right? Whether it's because somebody else made us look bad or we made decisions that put us in a bad light. You know, I'm watching the show on TV, and it's so very much about maintaining appearances. Right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a cultural thing, right? We need to pretend like everything's okay so nobody knows that we're falling apart. Or sometimes it's, I don't know why this one story stands out at me, but we did a show a couple months ago, I think on anger. And someone wrote in the comments, but if I stop being angry, I will look weak.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of keeping up appearances and, you know, needing to look a certain way and then having your pants pulled down, right, and being found out, so to speak, often leaves a scar on people when that's their thing.
Right. It only becomes a scar if you don't follow the formula of burn, break, accept. People burn and then they break, but then they're like, as soon as they say, "I wish this didn't happen," or they get angry, that becomes a scar. So the acceptance has to be there, and the excitement that this formula is going to bring you tremendous blessings. It's going to speed up your process. It's going to speed up your process with three major areas: health, wealth, and relationships. So this is how I look at it. So if you're like in a meeting and you're in a meeting with all your colleagues and somebody doesn't talk about something you did positively, or maybe takes credit for it, or maybe even says something bad about you.
Or just keeps cutting you off.
Oh. Just
like I just cut you off.
I mean, every time it happens, I just follow the formula and I just see miracles. Like on my laptop, I just see miracles popping up, like amazing things. Like so
investments just exploding.
All of a sudden, the stock market's going down, but my investments are going up. So my point is that, and by the way, I never feel that you're cutting me off. I feel there's a Pisces flow, just yes. waters gelling with each other. So it wasn't like I won't get into it. So I lost my train of thought.
See, I have that power.
Well, it's meant to be. I'll accept that.
Well, I think one of the things we want to point out, especially for our newer listeners, is that if you want to better understand the things we're talking about, the opponent, the ego, tikkun. We have next week a new level 1 course starting, Kabbalah 1.
Next week?
Next Wednesday.
September 9th.
Yes. And whether you've taken this class before, that you're new to the wisdom of Kabbalah, you're new to the show, this is a 6-week, it's about an hour.
It's usually 10 weeks, and we made it more of an intensive 6 weeks.
Right. 10 weeks, I think, is a long time for people, especially when it's online behind a screen. It's a little bit hard.
Yeah.
So it's going to be punchy. It's going to be intense, but it's going to be great. And we're going to give you the 6 most fundamental concepts of the wisdom of Kabbalah.
It's with Eitan Yordani. Are you moderating it?
I am moderating it, and I will know if you don't show up to class, so you better be there. But in all seriousness, it's a pay-what-you-can class. So whether you can afford the recommended donation for it, or you can just afford $5, we want to make sure that this wisdom, especially in our times when negativity is through the roof, this wisdom is more important than ever. So, you may have taken the class 500 times.
Every time is different.
Well, of course, every time is different. I spoke with somebody who brought 30 friends to the course, to the last one.
We had almost 3,000 people. But Eitan is the teacher's teacher. So he's like our lead teacher around the world, and he did the first global one, and he brought about 3,000 people. If I'm not mistaken.
It was amazing. It was. You know, what's interesting just to emphasize the idea that energy is the only real thing.
Yeah.
We're sitting in a room, the two of us, and there's 1,500, 2,000 people in the class, and it's like they're in the room with us. The energy is so electric, even though the bodies are not in the room with us. It is so powerful, and there's so much emotion. People are crying. I'm crying. He's crying.
Yeah, I came on a guest on one of your shows for Q&A, and I just saw the chat flooded. Like you'd ask a question, and the chat would flood with emotions and responses and everything. Very powerful.
Definitely. So, you know, whether you're the one who's taking it or you can share it with friends who have not yet begun their journey, it's a very powerful experience. And I think also in this time, we're going into a period where there's going to be a new, I would say, you know, about 2 weeks from now, we start the month of Libra, which is, from energetic point of view, new beginnings. And I think it's more than ever a powerful time to give yourself and the people around you the opportunity to have a fresh start. And that's really what it is to me. Every time I take it, I hear it for the first time again. And that's one of the reasons that I want to be a part of it every time, is so that I can hear it fresh and again.
To also make the technology point of view of watching our show easier, many of you may or may not know when we go live. Sometimes, you know, we always go live on this show, but sometimes we're posting other things and giving you, you know, more content. If you go at the top of the Weekly Energy Boost, those who have listened to us on Facebook, I actually know more people listen to us on podcast, right? Podcast and Spotify. We have many more listeners and viewers, if I'm not mistaken.
We are the #1 spirituality podcast consistently every week in like 10 countries.
I love that. Not the U.S. yet.
Not the U.S. is a really tough market.
The witches are
witchcraft and sex.
Witchcraft and sex always beats us out.
Trump's Kabbalah.
I know. I mean,
let's put it this way.
Can we bring them on our show?
Sex and witchcraft are probably faster ways to get energy than the.
Can we bring them on our show and talk about it? I think. Would you
if
guys
are listening,
would you want to learn about sex and witchcraft from the experts themselves? I mean, I think that would be a fascinating.
And how
show.
could we tie that into the weekly energy? That's my only question.
We can do some pretty phenomenal things. I want people to know that if you just go to on Facebook, if you go and you click on that little bell at the top, you'll also be you'll just be more in tune with our show. So when we go live, you're going to know it right away, because sometimes people tell me they miss it. I didn't know you were going live. Labor Day, we're going to have a show. So to tune in there. And I want to throw out something a little bit. I've been posting more on Instagram, just, you know, small videos, giving people content, because I know some people don't go on Facebook, whatever, they go Instagram, and I know you post stuff too. I'm getting into TikTok a little bit, and it is. Are
you dancing on TikTok?
No, not this. This
That's what people want to know, David.
Everybody thinks it's just dancing. It's not dancing. So I see the future. You know, I want us to be able to bring this wisdom out in a way that is powerful for our audience. I'm not sure if most of our audience follows TikTok yet, but they probably should. It is an incredible platform, and if anybody has an expertise about it or has knowledge or wisdom about it, you can share with Elisheva and I. Let us know. You can direct message me.
I think I'm too old for that.
It's not true. It's not true. There's so many older people who are doing it. You have to look at it. You have to look at it. I thought so too, and then I went on it, and like I realized 1 hour later, you're like wasting your time. It sucks you in. You got to be careful.
And that's exactly what we're advising against here on the Weekly Energy
That's
Boost.
why we got to bring a little spirituality to these platforms. So if you have an expertise about it, you know, you have something positive to share with us, let us know. Private message us, and we're going to learn more about it.
Okay. So whether you are watching on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or any of our podcast platforms, we want to hear from you. So continue to write your comments and questions. If you don't want to do that publicly, you can, as David mentioned, DM us. Or you can email us at energyboost@kabbalah.com. As you heard today, we read an email on the show. We don't do that every week, but it's great when we get a question that really does speak to what we're talking about. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.